Good morning and welcome. Hello. So glad everybody came out on these cold days. It's going to be a little warmer today, thankfully. My name is Lori, and I will be your MC today. I'm pleased to welcome those here in our community center and those joining on Facebook Live and YouTube to Kansas City Oasis. Since 2014, Oasis has been the premier secular alternative to faith-based communities. We welcome all, regardless of belief, non-belief, race, gender, sexual orientation, identity, or any other trait. We feel the human experience is better when it is shared, and we are so pleased that you have chosen to share it with us this morning. Our Kansas City Oasis mission statement is to educate members in the values of humanism, provide social support to the community, produce educational programs for the general public, and to engage in acts of charitable service. Our featured speakers are Jessica Rockhold and Dr. Shelly Cline. Facing Fascism, Lessons of Resistance from Nazi Germany. Our musical guest today is Jillian Riscoe. Our community moment will be by Bob Connor. Jillian can join us. Singing and performing since the age of 7, Jillian Riscoe has had her share of success. The award-winning Kansas City native singer-songwriter and Nashville recording artist has toured and performed across the U.S., splitting her time between KC and Nashville. She's always on the road bringing music with her wherever that may lead. Please give a warm Oasis welcome back to Jillian Riscoe.
Thank you. Hi, friends. Hope everyone's having a wonderful weekend. Thanks, Jason, for having me back, as always. The first time I'm going to do, if I've seen you here before, I have performed this here before. This is a single that came out a couple years ago. And I have a tendency to write songs. I feel like it's my heart and my soul kind of just telling me things that I need to know before my brain kind of catches up. So it's almost like a precursor to other things. And this is a song about giving yourself a second chance. So it's called Decoration. Paint on the walls inside is fading. I hate it. Need some light here in this room. Something colorful and pretty to make me feel like I haven't given up too soon. Hoping to spark some conversation, leave some room for an invitation. Will I shelf? Should I pack it up, move on and oh so way out on my own? Did I meet your expectations? Won't hang it up or knock it down. I'm not some decoration. Most days I feel like I'm in the background, like right now. Some days I feel center stage. Things run always this way, believe me, you'll see. Seeing better days, hoping to spark some conversation, leave some room for an invitation. Will I run off the shelf? Should I pack it up? Thank you so much. Thanks, friends. All right. Next I'm going to do, I don't think I did. Maybe I did this one last time. Jason, maybe you can remember. I don't think I did. I'm going to play some new songs today, if that's okay. I've been doing a lot of writing between here in Nashville and Florida and all over the United States. I have a lot of fellow co-writers. Songwriting's been a part of my life since I was about 10, 11 years old. And this is an autobiographical song. I went through a really dark, tumultuous time in a relationship years ago, and I almost wasn't here because of it, and I thankfully had a friend that gave me a phone call back and kind of turned everything around. So first line of this song might sound familiar because there's a highway that you guys probably drive on here in Kansas City on it. This is called Ancient History, and it's about moving forward even through the dark times. Highway 435 went out for a drive. Felt like I couldn't breathe. I was somewhere down the road, so close to the exit sign. And we turned the phone call, yeah, we talked like so you and my family. Every single detail that you thought it was make-believe. That's ancient history, but it's so part of my story. Doesn't mean it doesn't get to me, but you see I finally setting myself free. But I know too well to make all this hell. But as far as I can tell, that's ancient history. Yeah, so the car, bought a new guitar, took myself to Tennessee. Thought the end of one word hadn't be the end of me. It's taken me some years, yeah, it's pretty clear. Maybe 10 eternity to finally walk on my own without uncertainty. That's ancient history, but it's all part of my story. Doesn't mean it doesn't get to me, but you see I'm finally setting myself free. But I know too well to make all this hell. But as far as I can tell, that's ancient history. Now no matter, trying to do better, chapters goes to write a life letter. Story's not complete, there's no room to repeat. Now no better, trying to do better, pages goes to write a life letter. So you get away with all you do, thought the end was so close in my book. That's ancient history, but it's all part of my story. Doesn't mean it doesn't get to me. Oh, but I know I'll do him well. We'll make all this hell. But as far as I can tell, but as far as I can tell, that's ancient history. That's ancient history. Thank you so much.
Muy bien. All right, birthdays this week. On February 2nd, coming up, Paul Wiley. February 3rd, Casey Patrick. Woo-hoo! Does anyone else have a birthday or celebration this week? What's up? Right on. 4th anniversary? No, birthday. On the 4th, thank you. Great. All right. We have two new Kansas City Oasis Board members, Clark Johnson and Jennifer Barnes. Thank you both for taking these voluntary leadership positions. And in other community life events, not pictured, Terry Allen bought a new house. Congratulations, Terry. And we're all waiting for the housewarming party invitations. Please get your phone out. We have a few QR codes coming up. If you enjoy KC Oasis, please give us a review, which helps us get the word out. I didn't do that. About this secular community. Facebook and Google are most helpful. There will be a handout that includes the QR codes to give a review, and QR codes that will also be on the slideshow in the lobby during the coffee break. So, big screen. Right on. Spring community groups are coming, and we need hosts to lead them. Deadline to sign up to host a community group is today. So mull it over quick and join in on the fun and conversation. We have 4 community groups available so far to sign up for starting today. Located in Northeast Kansas City, Missouri, Lee Summit, Missouri, Fairway, Kansas, and Raytown, Missouri. Meetings will begin on the week of March 1st and conclude the week on May 10th. If anyone else signs up to host today, they will be added to the forum. Micah Ministries serves hundreds of people a meal on Monday evenings from 5:15 to 7:15. They help anyone, regardless of race, gender, religious or non-religious affiliation, sex, sexual orientation, or any other trait. Come join us tomorrow in helping our less fortunate neighbors. We have moved to volunteering on the first Monday of each month now. All Tuesdays in February are bachata classes, 6:30 to 7:30, $15 per class, no partner needed. We will have a chili cook-off fundraiser next week. Not only do we need people to bring their award-winning chili, we also need a bunch of people to come taste the entries and cast your votes. Find out who has the most Super Bowl of chili, and I know. I didn't write this. And we will also be playing Card Flip Bingo, a fun game with playing cards. Bring a deck of cards or 2 if you have them. Money raised will go towards buying and installing a ceiling-mounted projector. And then we'll be able to dance and run up and down the stairs over here all we want without knocking the projector over. And save on setup time. Our AV crew is so awesome. They set all this up every day, every Sunday for us. Friday, February 13th, I didn't do that, will be a Latin dance night with a beginner lesson at 7:30 and open dance 8:30 to 10, $10 each. I didn't do that either. Those in the book club or wanting to join, start reading Everything is Tuberculosis for the March 1st discussion. After Oasis today is the book club for those who read the book this month. Mark your calendar now for karaoke night to start off our 12th anniversary weekend on Saturday, April 11th. Was that a lot to remember and to keep track of? Don't worry, you can keep up to date on what's going on at KC Oasis by signing up to receive our weekly email newsletter. Go to kcoasis.org and under What's Happening for the newsletter sign up, or scan this QR code. They're everywhere. Community moments are an opportunity for a member of our community to present on a topic of their choice during a Sunday gathering. Topics can be related to your profession, hobbies, travel experiences, volunteer experiences, etc. Sign up on kcoasis.org or talk to Mr. Roger Pick. We have the next 2 Sundays scheduled, so we need your story later in February and March. So sign up with Roger. For today's community moment, we will hear from Bob Connor. 3 words to describe him are curious, analytical, and unserious. If they had a warning label, it would be this product contains chemicals known to be to the state of California to cause cancer, birth defects, and other reproductive harm, which is pretty much every chemical on the planet.
Hi, everybody. All right, so today I'm going to talk about password security. This is a big one. All right, so about me, I'm a former system administrator and cybersecurity consultant. I'm currently a cybersecurity infrastructure engineer at an ISP. All right, so the risk. So passwords are the most important part of personal cybersecurity. A lot of security research that you read about in the news and stuff focuses on these cutting edge vulnerabilities and stuff. That's what makes headlines, but most attacks are really just people obtaining passwords. Your accounts are your digital life. They are the gatekeepers to all of your communication history, private personal data, business documents, interpersonal relationships, your finances, everything. Password leaks happen all the time. So 16 billion, this is from around the middle of last year, it happens all the time, and it's an enormous risk. So usually this is social engineering, which I'll talk about in the next slide, but it can also be like vulnerable services, vulnerable databases, stuff just not being locked down, misconfigurations. That happens constantly. So everybody has heard of this, phishing. There's different versions of it. Phishing, vishing, which is voice phishing. That's done over the phone. With AI, this is a huge threat because you can emulate people's voices and stuff. It's going to get so much worse. Spear phishing is when you do a bunch of research about an organization based on all of the effort or all of the information that you can gather from it. LinkedIn for people's job titles, email address formats, like first initial last name @company.com, internal jargon, relationships with vendors. There was a famous hack a while ago through Target, that big one in like 10 or 15 years ago. They got popped through an HVAC vendor, and they ended up stealing all of their, they dumped the RAM of the payment card processors in the store and got everybody's credit card that way. So like vendor relationships are a huge way that companies are vulnerable to this kind of thing. Everybody is familiar with spam. That's a low effort, low return strategy, but it can trick people into visiting fake sites that have been set up specifically to steal people's passwords, harvest information. The most dangerous attacks are informed by the recon that people do before they attack a target. And this is really how it works, like this comic. Robert Hackerman, the county password inspector, just calls, and somebody just turns over some information that they shouldn't. So credential stuffing. I feel like people, like outside of cybersecurity, people tend to not really know about this one, but it's the biggest risk for sure. This is reused passwords. So if I'm a hacker and I'm on the dark net and I buy a database of passwords that have been leaked from somewhere, I hacked your Etsy shop or whatever, and I have all of these, a million working username and password combinations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that username and password combination, I'm going to try it on every other site that I can think of, because people reuse passwords constantly. So I'm going to get into your email, and then I'm going to search for a bank. And then I'm going to change your email password, and then I'm going to go to the bank, and I'm going to do forgot username and password, and I'm going to reset your bank password, and then I'm going to wire all your money out of it. So misconceptions about passwords. People overemphasize, I think, password strength as a metric. That doesn't really reflect how passwords get compromised. People aren't sitting there attempting to infinitely log into something. I mean, anybody who's mistyped the password 5 times knows that most services will lock you out. Some of them, though, don't. Some of them you can retry infinitely, and Windows Remote Desktop is a good example. When I worked a ransomware incident when I was a sysadmin, where somebody was logging into their work computer from home, and their password was a lowercase name with 1 number afterwards. And they just brute forced it and logged in and ransomwared this entire environment. So the reason strong passwords are suggested is because you can't usually tell what's going to let you log in infinitely. You need a really strong password with random special characters. This is another myth. The best passwords are 4 random, easy to remember words separated by spaces or hyphens, and the primary determinant of password complexity is actually length. So this is surprising to people who think, that this password is better than this one. Cracking, I mean, it's kind of its own thing, but as you can see, 8 special characters here takes 20 hours. 4 random words takes 18 million years. Back to this one though, the HTTPS, this is the lock icon in the top right. That doesn't mean that a site is who they say they are, because you still have to check the domain. All that it means is that the site has an SSL cert on it and your browser trusts that. It's like going into a soundproof phone booth to give a hacker your password. You're still telling a hacker your password. So you need to make sure you investigate the recipient of whatever information you're sending. So the biggest risks, in order of severity, password reuse. This happens all the time. People love having one password. And if you lose one password in this case, you've lost everything. The security of your weakest site is the security of your passwords overall. So you use the same password everywhere, some low security site gets popped, and all of a sudden, all of your passwords are hacked. MFA, multi-factor authentication. Single factor logins where you just enter a password and it lets you in. That means full access. If you don't have that, it means full access for an attacker. They get your password, they're in. I'm talking about the phone apps that make you put in a code. They send a one-time code via SMS. You get it on your phone, you put it in. That is, you should absolutely have that on every service that allows it. Simplicity is the least important of all of these. You really don't want a guessable password on your high-value targets like your bank account or your email, or you don't know what's misconfigured somewhere. You don't know what'll let you log in infinitely. Somebody's going to sit there, try forever, and eventually get in. That does happen. So password managers. Most people are probably familiar with these in some capacity. They have the browser-based ones in Chrome and Firefox. If you're logged into the browser, which you have to click the little 3 dots to make sure you're actually logged in and have a profile, that will do the generate random password. It'll suggest one, and you can save it. Those are really good, especially because it's so convenient. It's a native browser function. You have your browser on your phone and your browser on your desktop, and they both integrate with each other. It's really, really effortless. Just let the browser make the password. It'll save it. It has its own service for that. There are standalone services like LastPass. I use Bitwarden. LastPass got hacked through somebody's Plex server a couple years ago. That was a big deal. Dashlane, KeyPass. And it's a continuum because KeyPass is entirely local. It's all on your computer. It's not in a cloud database anywhere. But it's the most cumbersome to use and configure for people who aren't like super literate or don't want to spend a lot of time messing with it. As usual, security is a spectrum between usability and actual security. Any of them are better than nothing. The browser-based ones are perfectly fine for most people. You don't need a third-party service to do this. It's a native browser function. Now you just have to make sure you actually use it. The most important thing that you can do from that is make sure that they're unique to individual sites. You really, really, really don't want to reuse passwords. I would see people get popped all the time when I was a consultant from just having the same password on their Yahoo Mail that they did for their work account. And don't store your email password in your password manager. Just as if those get hacked and your email password is out and you don't have MFA on it, like, you're boned. Multi-factor authentication, these are the apps. You usually set this up, you download the app, you get a QR code, and it gives these codes that are good for a minute. Those are super useful. They're better than SMS or email, the thing where it emails you a password. What if your email's hacked? SMS you can sometimes retrieve those depending on what phone service you have. You can retrieve those through a portal account. So if I had Sprint once, I think, this was a couple years ago, you can log into Sprint and view your SMS messages. So if you've reused the password, your password is leaked, you get in there, somebody can read your SMS messages. There's also more advanced stuff like SIM swapping. Some of you might have heard of that one. That's kind of an advanced thing. You're definitely being targeted if that happens. It's not just a shotgun blast, try whatever we can, getting random passwords from people. You're being targeted if somebody's doing that. Password security matters much less if you have MFA because you have to approve a device, a login on a separate device. That is the second factor, hence multi-factor. So after you've onboarded all this stuff, you've got a password manager, you're all set up with it. A lot of them have the security audit process where you can go automatically rechange all of these passwords. It'll do like an audit, and sometimes you can click a button and it'll literally go change and store all your new passwords. That one is really convenient. It doesn't work half the time, but it's better than nothing. And by the end, you really only need to know your email password and your password manager password. And if you have biometric authentication, like you put in your thumbprint on your phone to view your passwords, you don't even really need a password for that, although I definitely recommend it. And you don't want to store your email password and your password manager password in the manager, because again, if that gets hacked, bad things happen. Passkeys. This is something that happens more and more. You go to a website and it says, you want to make a passkey? Yeah, you do. So passkeys are like personal SSL certificates. I won't get into that. In my professional work, I am the SSL guy at my job. So if anybody wants to talk about that, I don't know why you would, but they're secure if your physical device is secure. They usually use faceprint authentication, biometrics, browser ID, all this other stuff, but you don't have to interact with it. You save this passkey, it gets saved in your account, it gets synced with all your other devices. This Chrome screenshot, if you create a passkey on there, you just never have to log into it. You attempt to access the site and your browser goes, it's me, and it lets you in. If you get an option to make a passkey on a site, you definitely want to do it. So resources for this, Have I Been Pwned is really good. You put in any email address that you use and it tells you what breaches it's been associated with. So these people are going through and looking at these database creds that, or databases that get leaked of username and passwords, and if your email is found in there, it'll tell you. This one is awesome, it's essential for everybody. Password Monster is a password complexity checker. So you put in a password you want to use, it tells you if it's good or bad. Again, that's not the biggest consideration for personal security. And data breach is just a repository of known breaches. So this is, like breaking news. This database just got leaked and is now for sale or published on the darknet. So conclusions and additional tips, if you're making them manually, the best passwords you can do are just 4 random words. They don't have any obvious association with each other. This will take forever to hack. Nobody's going to brute force that. Hackers are going for the lowest hanging fruit. Any amount of security is better than none. It's sort of like a lock. People can pick locks, they can break locks. It's a deterrent. It makes it take longer. You're a less appealing target. So investigate suspicious login pages and emails. Always check the sender domains. Like if you're getting something from Apple, make sure it's from apple.com. If you're getting a password reset, make sure it's from google.com. This is pretty standard advice. Most people probably know it at this point. If you get an unexpected email prompting you to log in, just go to the site and log in. Don't click the link that takes you to log in somewhere. This, especially if the email conveys any sense of urgency, that's what you want to look out for. If there's a call to action in there, you really just want to go directly to the source and not, click the link, get in there. Oh no, your PayPal account's been compromised. Click this link, might be a fake portal. And just because your browser trusts it and doesn't give you an error message doesn't mean it isn't fake. Security versus usability being a spectrum. The most secure practices are also just annoying, like physical hardware tokens. You touch your thumb to a thing you keep on your keys. That's such a pain, but it's ultimately the most secure thing you can do. Reuse, worst thing you can do, for sure. Worse than simple passwords, worse than guessable passwords, all of that. The best setup is randomized passwords stored in any manager with MFA that are not reshared anywhere else. And every single service that allows MFA, multi-factor, we're going to email you, we're going to text you, put that on everything. That's the most important thing. That's the second most important thing you can do. And there you have it.
Thank you so much. Well, that was all really, 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 really good information. During the coffee break, take a look at the table of crocheted items to help keep you warm. Each one was crocheted from donated yarn. All funds go to Oasis as a fundraiser. Prices marked as suggested amounts. The merch table can guide you on the payment options. And look how cute Amy is in her hats. Love Amy's smile. During the coffee break, be sure to introduce yourself to someone you don't know. See the TV over the center doors for more upcoming events and information. We'll see you here back in 20 minutes. us welcome back Jillian for another song. And please remember all her links and places to find her. And then she's heading to Florida next. Hey, can you tell us about Lyrical Bells?
Yes. Lyrical Bells is a... Okay. It's a women's songwriter round. It's Nashville style. If anybody is familiar with a songwriter round, it's where you go up. There's usually 3 or 4 people on a stage, and you do a round robin style situation. So we do that down at Knuckleheads in the Gospel Lounge, and we've been doing it for over 2 years, and we've had a lot of wonderful, successful shows. And I am one of the co-founders, co-curators, co-hosts with a couple other musicians, Dan and Josephine Eve, and we will be kicking it off for the 2026 calendar.
Great.
So, February 12th.
We caught it last winter. A few of us came down.
Yeah,
That was great.
Yeah, it's a fun show.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna do a new song. I haven't played this here before. I wrote this with my friend Taylor Lynn Colin. We also have a duo that we're starting, and she's a wonderful singer-songwriter here in the KC area, and we're about to go record in Nashville here in the next couple months. So very excited for that. This is a song called Marionette, and it's about basically giving yourself permission after you feel like you have to meet certain expectations of other people. The music industry is a weird place. Being a musician is a weird thing. And I've been doing it forever and ever since I was a little kid, and I thought there were certain people that I had to impress to be able to move forward in my career, and I just realized that, nope, I just need to be myself and do my thing. So it's called Marionette.
Holding on to hesitation, why don't you just come out and say it? You hold the strings and keep me patient, only last so long. I've been waiting for the stage lights to come on. I'm an entertainment, singing without a song. We both know I can do this on my own. Just let me go. Curtains drawn and the curtains closed, spinning with eyes like a marionette. I'm cutting the ties so I can live with it. Now I'm free. You won't get the best of me. He's and these are second chances, overlooking stealing glances. How could you pick me up and make me feel so small? I've been waiting for the stage lights to come on. I'm the entertainment, singer without a song. We both
Thank you. And we'll get another song from her at the very end. Speaker disclaimer, our program is designed to generate conversation and engage our powers of reason, not as a forum to start debates. The following presentation has been prepared by our speakers and not by Casey Oasis. Please respect the views of our speakers, and if you have any questions, a Q&A portion will follow as time permits. Jessica Rockhold has spent 17 years running Midwest Center for Holocaust Education programs and was the Director of Education before being named MCHE's Executive Director in January 2020. Dr. Shelly Cline joined MCHE team in 2015 and is the Historian and Director of Education. She is an instructor in the Jewish Studies program at the University of Kansas. Please welcome back Jessica and Shelly.
Thank you, everyone. We think this is our third time at Oasis. We've been here talking about propaganda and media literacy and the destruction of democracy, and now we're here to talk about fighting fascism. So it seems like we're on a timeline. And we appreciate you having us back. It's always a pleasure to be here with you. In Holocaust education, there is a tendency to, when we say the word resistance, to focus on Jewish armed resistance. We think about things like the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising and the heroism of people that were able to somehow acquire some weapons and fight back. Holocaust survivor Roman Kent tells us that sometimes the easiest form of resistance was with a bullet and a gun. That there are many ways to resist, and that many of them are more difficult than reaching that point of kind of complete desperation when you're willing to fight with a gun. And so when we think about this period, we of course elevate those stories of Jewish resistance, but what we know is that most people in this historical event, or really any historical event, are neither the perpetrators nor the victims in a story. They are somewhere in the middle. They're the people that have traditionally been called bystanders, people who are not directly causing harm or directly the victims of that harm, but have somehow landed in the middle. And what we know about authoritarian governments or systems is that as they rise, they are relying on those people in the middle remaining quiet, those people in the middle continuing to find a way to live their lives in some sort of system of comfort that allows them to just move on with their day. So what we're here to do today is present this history and challenge everybody to think about the many ways that resistance can be formed, and take it as a lesson for how we live our lives and engage in our society today.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you again for having us here. We called this Facing Fascism because, of course, as Jessica says, most people are faced with a choice, and many people just remain in a place of inaction. Fascism does rely on us. What they need for us is to not agree with them, but to just do nothing. So I'll give some examples, a few of people who contributed to the system, and then again, many examples of people who chose to do something, some action. We don't want to leave you with the impression, of course, that everybody in Nazi Germany is like a massive resistance worker fighter, because of course that wasn't the truth. But the benefit of this history is knowing it and taking lessons from that. To give some context, let's just kind of briefly orient you here. Hitler, of course, comes to power in 1933 as a result of a 1932 election in which the Nazi Party won 34% of the national vote. Most people assume it was some sort of a landslide victory. Of course, it was not. 34% of the national vote made the Nazi Party the largest minority party in the Reichstag, which meant their leader, Hitler, was appointed chancellor by the President Hindenburg. That happens in January of 1933, and over the next 18 months, Hitler and the Nazi Party will work to destroy German democracy from the inside out, right? Institution after institution will fall in this 18-month period. So we'll go through some of the actions people took, but I want you to look at the photo there in the top corner. That is a photo of judges who are taking the oath to Hitler. So in that 18-month period, Hitler will Aryanize many professions, doctors, teachers, meaning they will kick out people who are Jewish, but also people who have political activity that is counter to the Nazi belief. So that means if you have done political things they didn't agree with, you could be removed from the government, civil servants, and also lawyers. So they will Aryanize the legal profession, and the legal profession early on gets on board with the Nazi Party. They will, there's a moment right after the Nazis are in power where they could have spoke out against some of the sweeping powers that they were taking. Instead, judges said that they agreed with this drastic action that was being taken. And then finally, there was a moment when Hindenburg, the president, dies in August of 34. When the president died under the Constitution system, it was not the chancellor that took over. It was supposed to be the president of the German Supreme Court. So there was a moment that the president of the German Supreme Court sort of said, whoa, 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 now I'm the president and I can make some calls. Instead, he stays silent. Hitler abolishes the office of the presidency, combines the powers with the chancellor, and then appoints himself as Führer. And that happens in August of 1934. So really 18 months after he becoming chancellor, now Germany is in this authoritarian dictatorship. So let's look at some of the things people did. This is a monument in Berlin. For those of you who've been in Berlin, you maybe saw it, maybe you've missed it. It's to the side of the Reichstag, and it honors those politicians, 96 members of the German Reichstag who were murdered by the Nazi regime for their political actions and beliefs. One of the things that they did was vote no on the Enabling Act. So in March of 33, again, see how quickly this is happening. In March of 33, the legislative branch of the German government voted to give up their power to the executive branch. They voted to no longer be making the laws, resolving budgets. All of that was going to go to Hitler and his cabinet. The members of the Social Democratic Party opposed it. So even though it was probably going to pass, there were these members who said, no, we are not going to cast our vote to give up our power. They did this in the face of SS soldiers who were standing there in the halls where the vote was taken, so there was like real pressure. They opposed it. The communist members were not even present because they had previously been arrested by the regime. And you can see the photo there on the side is members of the Social Democrats who have now been arrested, not directly following this vote, but soon, and are being taken to concentration camps. After the vote passes and the Social Democrats fail to prevent the Enabling Act, they make this statement, and it was reprinted here, saying that they are standing by the principles of constitutional state, equal rights, social rights anchored within it. So they give this very impassioned speech saying they are still going to defend the principles basically of democracy. And other members cheer, and of course the Nazi members who are present there kind of laugh and heckle them. But again, there was a statement made, as we know, that did not prevent what comes next. But there's still, I think it still matters that there were people who had the courage, even though this might mean their arrest, imprisonment, and eventual death, to do this. So I want us to look in terms of categories. So we have brief political action, and then we'll look at individuals, and then eventually groups as well. So this is what might seem like a small thing, but in fact is making a statement. This is a newspaper stand that would have looked like this. And so this is where the very anti-Semitic Nazi propaganda piece called Der Stürmer, they would display it publicly. And so you can see people looking at that kind of billboard there that actually displays the pages. And every edition of Der Stürmer said the Jews are our misfortune, and often it said above on the stand, it said the Jews are our misfortune. So this was a common anti-Semitic slogan that was used throughout Germany. You can see in this instance, someone has defaced it. They've graffitied it, and so now it says the Jews are our fortune. Now again, this seems like a small thing, but in an authoritarian system, this is a crime that could certainly have gotten you arrested, as time goes on, the severity escalates. But this is a moment where an individual is saying, I don't agree with this regime, and I want other people to see that perhaps they are not alone in disagreeing. There's another case This is in 1936. This is a Jewish man who was arrested. He was accused, arrested, and does serve a brief prison sentence for defacing a swastika on the side of a bus. He gets off the bus, and then he takes his cane and he scratches out this swastika. Again, a minor thing, but trying to make a point. He's seen by another bus driver, and he spends about 5 weeks in jail, and then eventually he will flee, so he does survive. But again, someone who's just trying to deface symbols of the regime. Another active sort of Jewish resistance happens on April 1st. April is a very busy month in the first months of the regime. This is where they do a lot of those Aryanization laws as well. And on April 1st, the government organizes a nationwide boycott of German Jewish businesses. The point is to separate Jews out from the Germans, to say these people are not like us, that if you shop at a Jewish business, you are a traitor to the racial community. And so they position the stormtroopers outside these Jewish businesses, and they have them pass out information about the dangers of Jews and the cowardice of Jews. And in response, Jewish war veterans will stand next to those stormtroopers dressed in their World War I uniforms with their medals, and they will pass out information, in fact, about the ways in which Jewish men served in World War I. So this does act as, again, a visible symbol. It does disrupt the boycott a bit, disrupts traffic. Ultimately, their response does not stop the boycott, but what does stop the boycott is that average Germans aren't into it. They want to buy their socks at the same department store that they always do. And so they just keep doing their normal habit. And in that way, the government learns, okay, German people not ready, that they'll have to pass some more laws and engage in further propaganda to get the population on board. This is an example. Starting in 1934, we start to see in Germany benches, signs on benches that appear that say only for Aryans, not for Jews, only for Jews, that sort of thing. Again, a way to physically separate out the Jewish community. So if you just looked at this photo, the one of the woman, you might think, oh, she's sitting on a bench that says only for Aryans. And you might think, wow, isn't she into her Aryan privilege? But really, this is a Jewish woman who is defying the law and sitting on that bench anyway. And so her sitting on it, small act of resisting the norms. The person she found to take the photograph, same thing. She will eventually, shortly after this photo was taken, she's able to get out and she comes to the United States and she takes that photograph with her. Contrast that with the individuals who are actually sitting on the bench, and that bench says, not for Jews. So maybe these are individuals who have, every Saturday they have taken that same walk and they've sat on that bench, and this is just part of what they do. Once they sit on that bench that says, not for Jews, they are now giving permission to the regime and to this project of segregation. So this is one of those things where you think about a small thing that could be done with really no consequence to those people. They could not sit on the bench, right? They could not obey in advance. You don't have to sit there. And by not, if a whole country of people don't sit on the benches that say for Aryans only or not for Jews, that does send a message about how the public feels. In Munich, there you can see the black and white photo. This is the spot near City Hall where in 1923, when Hitler attempted his failed putsch of the government, this is as far as sort of his troops got. And there's a skirmish with the local police, and of course Hitler's putsch fails. But that location becomes a very important site in Germany once the Nazis are in power. It is the site where they will set up memorials to those Nazis who were killed. They will swear in the SS at that particular square every November 9th at midnight. And because there are memorials there to those who were killed, there's a Nazi guards that are set up there, an honor guard, and every citizen who passes is required to make the Hitler salute at those memorials. And so there were individuals who did not want to do this, and so you have to do it if you pass it. And so the way around it is they would find a different path around that square, and so they would go behind it. There's a memorial today. If you look, you can see on the ground, there's these sort of bronze plaques that have been put there. This is a path of resistance. It became known as Shirker's Alley because so many people were trying to divert and go that way. Eventually, they will start posting officials there to try and arrest people who are avoiding the salute. But again, a small thing, but something that people were able to do. In 1940, we have a couple, Elise and Otto Hempel, who are in Berlin. Elise's brother was killed in action. He was a member of the military, and he was killed. And after his death, she becomes very invested in encouraging people to resist the regime. And so she and her husband will write almost 300 postcards for the next 2 years, encouraging people to rise up, overthrow Hitler, don't go in for military service, small things, right? But they were, it seems like writing a postcard is a small thing, and yet these postcards were turned into the Gestapo, and eventually after 2 years, they were caught, and they were imprisoned and executed. Even though the postcards were immediately found and turned in, it still took them 2 years to find and catch these individuals. So some of this really does fall under the category, it seems small, but it is psychologically powerful for people to find a message that says, don't go along with regime. Here's the only example of sort of more of an armed thing I included is this man here, George Essler, who makes an attempt on Hitler's life. And he is a kind of a lone wolf actor. He plants a bomb in one of the pillars at the Bürgerbräu Keller where Hitler is set to speak on the anniversary of the failed putsch. And everything pretty much goes to plan, right? He works for weeks to, he stays at the beer hall, and then it closes, and he crawls out of hiding, and he works, and the bomb is set to go off, about 20 minutes right before the end of Hitler's what would be speech. And the only problem is it was foggy that day. And so rather than fly, Hitler takes the train down to Munich, which means he's going to take the train back. And because he took the train, he had to leave earlier than expected. And so that bomb goes off exactly as it should have, except Hitler is on a train on the way back to Berlin. It does end up killing 8 people and wounds a further 57 who had kind of stayed there for the celebrations. He is caught because he sets the bomb, he's headed to the border of Switzerland, but he kept a postcard of the Bürgerbräu Keller in his pocket with an X on it. He kept parts of the fuse because he wanted proof to say, yes, I did this, so he could kind of get the credit for it. But of course, that was just all the evidence that was needed to then keep him in prison. Where he's taken to Dachau, and he's executed shortly before the end of the war in 1945. There are about 100 attempts on Hitler's life, so that really isn't the focus of what we're doing here today, but if you are interested in that, there's certainly more information on attempts that were made. So about 100, some of them come from within the military, some of them from within kind of the intelligence services of Germany, so there are lots of plots that are put into place, but of course they do fail. We have some examples of Christian resistance, and I put this in the category of individual because it's not like we see whole congregations who are rising up and doing something collectively, but you do see people who are moved by their faith or their faith background to take action. Bishop von Galen is a bishop within Germany who will speak out about the T4 euthanasia program, and so he will from the pulpit say, this sort of euthanasia is wrong, and he will talk about the tactics of the Gestapo as well. So he will use his position to condemn those aspects of the regime. Pastor Martin Niemöller, many of you have probably recently seen his most famous quote, first they came for the communists, but I wasn't a communist, and they came for the socialist, I wasn't a socialist, and then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. He was someone who initially supported Hitler. He thought that Hitler could revive Germany nationally, so he was on board. But then as time went on, he started to question that. He was also against the Aryan paragraphs that eliminated Jews from civil service and whatnot, because this meant that he thought it undermined the principles of baptism. So it wasn't necessarily in fact, he called himself an anti-Semite. He was an avowed anti-Semite. But he understood that if someone had, been baptized a Christian, and then they were being taken by the government as Jewish because they were seen as racially Jewish, that was undermining a principle of his faith. So he stands up in that regard. He will be imprisoned for resisting some of these things, and he stays there until 1945. It is in the post-war world that he really starts to speak about his regret in not doing something sooner and seeing that progression and making the mistake that so many people do, that fascism won't come for me because I agree with it. And in the end, of course, fascism comes for everybody, even the people who brought it into power. Margaret Summer is a really interesting woman. She got her doctorate in the 1920s, at a time when not a lot of women were doing this. She is a Catholic social worker. She was initially a teacher for a while and was dismissed from her teaching position because she refused to teach the parts about euthanasia, that the government was sanctioning euthanasia, so she says no. And she will help Jewish people get out of the country. She will help fundraise and provide money for Jewish families who've they're not able to work because they've been put out of work by some of these laws. And eventually she will hide Jewish people, and she will also document deportations. I think there's a case of her where she follows like a train of a deportation to see where it goes. So she's doing some really important on-the-ground work in that way. She's also important because she understands that her individual action is not going to bring the regime down, right? No one person is going to do that. But in her mind, she wants to slow it down. And so her goal is to do as many small things that she can to slow the machine down. And that's in many ways what you see a lot of these actions are doing. It's slowing it down, whether it means, trying to change people's minds, and you never know kind of where that output will go. And of course, you've probably heard of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He was a Lutheran pastor who, there's a couple times where he's actually out of the country and could have stayed there, but decides to return to Germany. And in his position as a pastor, he will oppose the German Christian movement. This is where there were a lot of, particularly Protestant churches, that were fully embracing Nazism. You can see some photos there, the swastika incorporated into the altar, that sort of thing. He gave up certain positions because he didn't, he wanted to oppose this, this movement. And he eventually will then start working with members, kind of like secret resistance groups within the German intelligence, within the military. And he's able to, under the cover of being a pastor, he can travel internationally. It looks like he's just going to talk to other religious guys. And in fact, he's trying to make contact, and does make contact with the Western allies, because he's trying to tell them there is a plot against Hitler. If we're able to kill him, can you make a separate peace with us? He was involved in the July 20th, 1944 plot to kill Hitler, that of course fails, and because he's discovered to be a member of that kind of group that was working on it, he is arrested and he is eventually executed. Another interesting example is Eric Osler. He's a cartoonist, and I say this as a lesson in complexity because here is someone who in an early career, 1933, before 32, 33, before the Nazis are really in power, he will work for some magazines that are openly criticizing the Nazi party. You can see he's making fun of Hitler and Goebbels here. So of course, once the Nazis are in power, his work is banned. So he will work under a pseudonym, and he produces this cute little cartoon called Father and Son. In this cartoon, he pushes back. So this shows his father and son. The kid doesn't want to sleep, and so instead of getting mad at the kid, he plays with him until he's sleepy, and then he puts him to bed. Seems like a kind of a innocuous thing. But a lot of his work showed a different style of parenting, and it went against these traditional views that the Nazi had about very authoritarian parenting. And so he does this cartoon. For 3 years, the Nazis, it becomes so popular they try and co-opt him as well and use his work. He eventually stops producing that in 1937. And then he does something a little bit odd. He starts working for Goebbels. So in the years that follow, he will work for Goebbels, does cartoons for Das Reich, which was an SS publication. But he says, I will draw cartoons against the Allies, not for the National Socialists. So he kind of finds a middle ground there. Even though he's producing these anti-American and anti-Russian or Soviet cartoons, he's still making jokes about the Nazis. He's still, loudly saying things that he shouldn't. And he is in fact denounced by two people that he shares a house with for his basically anti-Nazi sentiment. He is arrested. He's charged in a special court. So the Nazis set up a whole system of special courts that are outside the regular judicial system. And he is convicted. He commits suicide before he can be executed. Then we see some groups that resist. Maybe some of you know the movie Swing Kids. This is a group of young people. They were mostly in larger cities. Hamburg was a big center of the Swing Kids. They're young, 14 to 18. And their resistance is refusing the new normal. They want to listen to jazz, which was vilified by the Germans, right? They wanted you to be listening to traditional German classic music. They want to listen to jazz. They want to dress in a more American, British way. They want longer hair, baggy clothes. They want to be modern. And a lot of what the Germans were pushing, the Nazis were pushing, was this kind of old-fashioned regimentation. Short hair for boys, and for girls they wanted braided hair, not kind of the flapper bob that we saw earlier, and no makeup. And so these girls wear their hair in a modern way, and they wear makeup, and they paint their nails. So they're just, in some sense, being young people, and yet by refusing that new norm, it is an act of resistance. They will get the attention of the Nazis. The Hitler Youth especially hate them because they're so opposed to this Hitler Youth style. And so the Gestapo will raid one of their events. They are identified at that event. That's in March. And then later in the fall, 63 of them will be arrested. They spend some time in Gestapo prisons. They're interrogated. So they will face some punishment for these actions. They are such a threat, in fact, that Himmler, who was very high up in the government, Himmler will task Heydrich, the guy that you might know for being in charge of the final solution, with doing a major crackdown on these kids, because they see it as allowing this nonconformity strikes at the heart of what the government is trying to do. So they will arrest a lot of them during that period. Kind of the rule counterpart to the Swing Kids are the Edelweiss Pirates. I mean, what a great name. Look at them. And so these are rule kids, and they're also, about the same age, and they want to do things that, they're into kind of rule lifestyle. They're also rejecting the regimentation of the Hitler Youth, but they get a little bit more active in terms of active resistance than the Swing Kids. They will sometimes target Hitler Youth groups, and they kind of beat them up. They will help distribute propaganda from the Allies, leaflets that are being dropped. They'll do acts of sabotage that they can. They'll do anti-Nazi graffiti. So they are doing things that really can be, they can be arrested for. And in fact, some of them are. In 1944, there was a Gestapo crackdown. And as you can see in this photo, some of their leaders were hanged in public for the acts that they did. There's some opposition from workers. Now, one of the first things that the Nazi Party does when they're in power in 1933 is they will crack down on labor unions. And labor unions were very powerful in Germany in the pre-Nazi period. In fact, they are able to stop a right-wing authoritarian coup in 1920 because they bring the country to a halt with a national strike. Right? They stop this coup in a matter of days. The Nazis see that, and so they want to break labor unions early on, and they do. Even though they officially break them, their power of negotiation, these communities still exist. And so you'll see them still operating on a neighborhood basis. They have gatherings, they will pass information. Once the war starts, they are really interested in getting the truth back to the German people of the nature of the war. And so what you see is a kind of a pamphlet that they've produced. And it's hard to read, but basically what they're showing is one of the mass graves from the shooting actions in the East. They get the details a little bit wrong. These aren't just Russians or Soviets, those are Jewish people, but the point is they are bringing back tales of atrocity perpetrated on civilians. They're bringing that back to Germany. And the last example is one that you maybe know, and this is of the Scholl family, who were prominent members, founding members of the White Rose Resistance Group. But I thought it would be useful, rather than just think of the group or of Sophie and her brother, to think of this family as the whole family was really, from the beginning, engaged in some sort of opposition to the Nazis. The father, Robert Scholl, was a local politician. He does what he can to push back. He is critical of the Nazis from the beginning. He's in prison briefly because of it. And he tries to get his kids to see the dangers of the Nazis. Initially not successful because the Nazis are good at getting people on board and they're good at wooing the youth. And so initially most of his kids are involved in Hitler Youth activities, and some of them are very into it. They do all eventually reject it. You can see as early as 37, 3 of the kids are arrested by the Gestapo for potential involvement in anti-Hitler youth groups. Werner Scholl was the first member of the family to really do something against the Nazis. He resigns from the Hitler Youth. He climbs up on a statue of justice in a courtroom and blinds it with a swastika flag. He will be assigned military service because he was of military age, and he eventually dies on the Eastern Front. We don't really know what happened to him. Hans, who will go on to be in the White Rose group, he initially was a standard bearer, for one of the Nuremberg rallies. Like, he was so into the Nazi Party, but eventually he too becomes disillusioned with it and its conformity, and he too will do some pushback. Sophie, of course, is probably the most famous member. She's first arrested at 16, and every time she has to do, she does some teacher training, but as a young person, she is like mandated to be part of some of these national service activities. And every time she gets pulled into one of these regimented things, it strengthens her resolve to resist, that she doesn't want to be a part of this. When she goes to university, in Munich, she will find other students and professors who are interested in the same things that she is, and they will eventually form this White Rose group that we know. So it doesn't operate all that long. You can see the core members there, and many of them were influenced by previous acts of resistance that had happened before. Even if you think about that bishop that I mentioned who was speaking out about euthanasia, he'd done that, and then it influences these young people to take further action. And so they will write pamphlets and they will do graffiti. So the graffiti was aimed at the general public. And there's not many pictures of the graffiti because the Gestapo were good at getting it erased as fast as possible. But they would say "Down with Hitler" and other slogans like that. And they will do it in prominent places. The Marienplatz there, you can see where the Glockenspiel is if you've been to Munich. This is a very public, popular area where a lot of people would see it. Or the market area as well. So they take a big risk by putting graffiti in these areas to show not everybody's on board. And then the pamphlets are what they're probably most famous for. These are directed at university students, and they're looking to spread the word throughout Germany to other universities. And so you can see on the map the places that these pamphlets go. There's a quick kind of excerpt from this. Basically, these pamphlets call on the great tradition, intellectual tradition of Germany, and say, this isn't us. And for everyone who isn't doing something, you are, as they say, guilty, guilty, guilty. You can say it's not you, but by being here and not doing something, you are complicit in the crimes of the state. They are eventually discovered when, at their university, you can see the atrium there, Sophie and her brother were distributing pamphlets. They're kind of leaving them out for people to get. They're spotted by a handyman, Jacob Schmidt, who was a member of the Nazi Party. So he saw them, he turns them into the university. They are then turned into the Gestapo, and they are tried in one of those special courts. And these people who are in their 20s, they are then executed by guillotine, the very guillotine that you see there. And so when we think about the actions that people take under authoritarian regimes, it is important to think, right? All of us make decisions. Every individual makes a decision. And these cases, you can see Sophie Scholl, Bonhoeffer, they made choices to use the agency they had to bring, to slow the regime down. Then we have a picture of Jacob Schmidt there, who was the guy who turned the Scholls in. So you think about there are people who are actively aiding fascism, there are those that are trying to slow it down, and then as Jessica started with, there are the vast majority of people who are just living their lives. And again, I say, fascism, authoritarianism relies on the fact that people just want to keep doing what is most normal to them. When in fact, if everyone does some small thing to slow the machine down, it can have a tremendous impact. And we can take questions.
thing I've noted about a lot of fascist leaders is that they tend to be in horrific mental and or physical shape. So I'm wondering this, how many drugs was Hitler on when Germany was overthrown?
There is a lot of speculation about what it is that Hitler was taking. There's not great documentation. He probably was on some amphetamine cocktails, which then when the war is coming to an end, he doesn't have access to those. And so some of the shaking that you see in those final video images that we have is probably withdrawal from some of the drugs that he had been on.
I would just caution against assuming that that is responsible for all of the decision making that happens in the right. I just want to say globally, yes, probably a bit of a drug addict, but not the only problem.
He was also a vegetarian too, so.
Right. I'm right here. Hi, my name's Beverly. I'm a DACA recipient, so right now, the U.S. is a very weird place to be in. I've noticed that media that is based in the U.S. is used as a tool to control the public perception of third world countries, like the country I come from, Mexico. There's a lot of misinformation about our technological advances and stuff like that and the way that we live. How do you see the control of American people through media, especially since we carry our media, we carry our propaganda on our phones? How do you see that being used specifically in this context?
One of the things that we can do as a Holocaust Center and a nonprofit is teach the history and hold up the mirror for you to see what you see in the world today. We are interested in highlighting the lessons and how we can use this history to inform our present. We cannot, as MCHE, tell you what to see.
I would say too, one of the things that we run twice a year is a lunch and learn program, and the one that we are about to embark on in February this month, later this month, is on the media machine of Nazi Germany and how it, so the many ways that they were able to get to people, and a lot of, the way they use propaganda is of course still, used today in many instances, but as you point out, we have it with us all the time. And so I think that the lessons that we teach, it's almost like you have to kind of exponentially for the impact, because it is with us all the time and it goes so fast. One thing the Nazis didn't have going for them is they were mostly controlling their own stuff and putting it out there. There weren't so many grassroots citizen reporters who were doing the propaganda work for them. Yeah.
I think one other thing that we can say as a direct lesson of the Holocaust is media literacy. We are each responsible for what we consume and investigating that, right? So any source that you receive, whether it's something that you have traditionally trusted or not, you should be triangulating those sources. You should be making your own informed decisions and then making ethical choices about those decisions.
When dealing with some of the people who are apologetic of the Nazi Party, they like to say that Hitler was an atheist. I wonder if you could speak to some of the religious or non-religious connections.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's interesting because Hitler was, he grew up a Catholic. The Nazis were famously a not religious organization. While they are friendly to the Christian groups to begin with, like they are all for co-opting that German Christian movement, they eventually do turn on religion, and they will put, I forget which year it is, but they ban construction of further churches. So, the Nazis are not motivated by, their religion. They're not motivated by their lack of religion. They're motivated by nationalism. That's fascism. Yeah, that's fascism.
Hi, could you give us more details about that pastor who initially supported fascism but became the victim of it?
Niemöller? Yes. I don't know if there's anything specific you wanted to know.
Just remind us again about his journey.
Yes, his trajectory. So again, he is someone who believed in Hitler as someone who could revitalize Germany. And so he throws his support behind him, and it is only when he starts to see some of the policies that the Nazis put into place contradict his own belief, that he pushes back. And so he will start out kind of small in terms of just his own actions, and then he will eventually join other pastors in rejecting those Aryan paragraphs that I said, and it is that kind of public opposition to that policy that will get him on the radar of the government, and that's when he is eventually arrested.
I think one of the things that makes him a compelling person to think about, or somebody like Oskar Schindler, we often talk about people existing on a spectrum of how they respond to an incident, and having been a Nazi, and really upholding the ideals of Nazism, he moved, right? He changed his philosophy because of information that he received. And I think one of the things that we see as a lesson is that sometimes as a society, we see deep polarization and people really entrenched in their belief without a willingness to listen or have a conversation or consider perspectives. And it's okay to say, I did support this, but I no longer support it.
This is so great. If you have any other questions, everybody, we're going to hang out in the lobby afterwards because I know this is very pertinent information. Everybody wants to get tips on how to move forward and protect their neighbors. Thank you so much. In just a moment, we'll be passing around the volunteer task cards. Please grab one that you can accomplish today after our meeting concludes. And once you've finished your task, return it to the note card to the done purple box on the lobby near the drink station. All the cleaning supplies you might need are in the white cabinet in the foyer, right by the lemonade. We need everyone, yes you, to help keep this place looking great. While our musician is coming back for her last song, I want to remind everyone that the Kansas City Oasis is a 501c3 nonprofit run solely on donations and volunteers. If you liked the topics and music today, please consider donating through kcoasis.org/donate or by Venmo. Our Venmo information can be found at the merch table as well in the lobby, as well as a cash donation jar on the table over there as well. Reoccurring monthly donations through our website are most helpful. Here's Jillian for one last song today. Remember, there's a cash tip jar up here on the stage and her Venmo if you'd like to support her music. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, KC Oasis, for having me. Jason, thanks for having me out again. I appreciate you guys. It's also familiar faces, so good to see you and good to meet some new people as well. Last song I'm going to do, I wrote this song in Nashville recently with a couple new co-writers and one of my new producers. And I've been going through a journey of transformation, and it's been a weird year, everybody. Weird time in general, but it's been a weird year. Lots of growing, lots of healing. This song just reminded me of that, and how we don't have to have it all figured out, but as long as you're making steps forward with yourself and just in general, that's all we can do. So it's called Going Somewhere.
Haven't dragged around no baggage. It's been weighing my wings down. Gotta find my shine, my magic. Time to break away when I'm breaking out. Can't breathe here, need some fresh air. If you stay here, I'm going nowhere. May not know what's next, but I know somewhere there's a place for me. Gotta see where this for me. Blazing trails, I hold my own. Born to roam like a rolling stone. Can't look back, stay the same. Letting go of yesterday till I'm right where I belong. Won't do it till I get there. I'm going
Thank you, Jillian. I've heard you stay busy playing all over, sometimes 2 shows in one day.
Yeah, sometimes 3.
What do you have going on later today?
I will be at Arts KC in the Crossroads for Songbird Sessions. Heartland Song Network. I'm their featured artist for the month. So, them and Manor Records are putting on a little show, and I'll be there at 6 p.m. And yeah.
And I was looking at your Facebook yesterday. You're going to Florida next,
Yeah,
too.
tour in the Florida Keys.
Woo-hoo.
I'm excited. I know.
That's a good time of year to go.
I know. Sorry, I'm not gonna try to rub it in too much.
Well, bring back some sunshine when you come back. All right, thank you. Join us for lunch after Oasis to continue the conversation at Tanner's, 3900 Rainbow. Next Sunday, the featured speaker will be Jesus of Venezuela, Heartland Tree Alliance, a division of the Bridging the Gap. The musical guest will be Deanne Kinch. That's one of my besties. Thank you. With Scott McBee and a community moment by David Ricks. Before you head to lunch, take a few minutes to help clean up. We want to thank again this week's presenters, Jessica, Shelly, Robert, and the musician, Jillian. And thank you for being here or tuning in online. We'll see you next week.